humorous, challenging, everything in between commentary on social media from parents like you who are home, living the struggle that is educating, watching, entertaining, feeding, caring for, doing all these things in a much larger volume at home than you're used to doing on a 7-day rolling basis. Because for many of you, schools are out. You are faced with taking care of your kiddos, keeping them entertained and educated yourself. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do a presentation for you guys on what may be helpful for you as a mom or a dad or grandparent or any caretaker of kids during the COVID-19 crisis. So let's take a look here. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is maintaining a schedule. One thing that stands out to me from when I was a school psychologist was some kids are very, very different in school than they are when they're at home. And sometimes it's obvious why, and sometimes it's not obvious. What I find really interesting is the structure that a lot of kids get from school is really helpful. And it's different and harder and more challenging to provide structure in some cases at home. But some families are just very structured by nature, and that's okay. And some people are much less structured, which is okay as well. Everybody's unique. But what I will share with you that I'm fairly confident in is that when you are transitioning your child from school, which is highly scheduled, highly regimented, to a home environment, which traditionally is just not as structured because we have to have more ebb and flow in a home setting, you're faced with a new challenge. You've got a child who's used to all of this structure and synchronicity at school, and now they're faced with home. So you may be feeling the effects more so than you would have thought before you were voluntold, in many cases, that you were now the de facto teacher for your child. So for a lot of parents, what I'm seeing on social media is that, hey, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's not that complicated. I take care of my kiddo after school every day, before school every day, and every weekend they are mine. But things get a little bit different when this child, who their body, their mind, they're used to getting certain activities at certain times, certain energy out, certain focus levels in, and now you're changing up everything. So kids generally, like most humans, don't respond wonderfully to dramatic change. Although kids are resilient and most of them can get over things fairly straightforward, but it takes a little bit of effort. So that's why we're going to talk about a schedule. So the schedule gives your child a sense of security. It teaches a routine or a responsibility, and it allows for some flexibility within some set parameters. It also gives you and your child peace of mind. If you've ever thought about yourself as a grown-up, what's the worst thing? If you have older kids who are teenagers, you probably have answered right away. The worst thing is not knowing. People hate to not know what's going on. You would rather know that your child maybe is in trouble in school, or they've done something less than awesome, but at least you know where they are, what they've done, and that they're going to be okay. It's when you have somebody, let's say your teenager's out at night, where are they? Are they okay? I have no idea. Not knowing is the worst thing. So as a grown-up, we don't like that. But keep in mind, your children, whether they share it with you verbally or not, live the same thing. That when they don't know what's going on, things get real weird. So giving a schedule, creating something, and there's a lot of funny schedules on social media right now. I've seen a lot of humorous ones, but creating a serious schedule for you and your child will go very far. It'll make a huge difference because you and your child will know what you're doing right now, what's coming up next, and what's coming up later on. And it really allows for everybody to frame their mind around this day that is now very different from school. I will share with you that generally speaking, as I mentioned earlier, change is hard. So you may get some pushback. This image we have of this child here who's not responding well to change, and the parents who are also not responding well to change. This is real. I've seen a lot of hashtags. The struggle is real as a parent this week, and likely for the rest of the school year in a lot of cases. So what I want to share with you guys about is there's a natural tendency as parents and as humans to be to want to be loved, to want to be liked, particularly from children, from your children. You want to be liked and loved by your children. There's a common misconception from some parents that putting your foot down, particularly during these tough times, you're going to get pushback from your kids. So the misconception is that pushback is bad or pushback is unhealthy. I've seen a lot of parents who I've worked with over the years who have what I would call a subconscious, fear of losing the love of their child. And it gets pretty Freudian and pretty psychoanalytic if you want to start to unpack that a little bit. But generally, people don't want to make their kids upset. People don't want to make their kids mad at them. When your child says, "I hate you," I don't like you, it feels really crummy, and it's not fun. But what's important is to be able to weather the storm, right? It's not your responsibility to be a cool parent. It's your responsibility to be the best parent you can be. And a lot of times that involves being the heavy, or being the bad guy, being the bad cop, bad mom, bad dad, bad whomever. But that tends to wear off pretty quickly. The great thing about kids is that they don't tend to hold grudges for very long. At noon, you're the bad guy. Why do we have to do this? I hate doing writing right now. By 12:15, things are okay, and you're back to being awesome mom or dad or grandparent, etc. of the year. So don't be afraid to stick to your program, right? Don't get pushed around because you're afraid you're going to upset your child. I will say there's a different set of needs for kids who are on the autism spectrum. It's more important to prepare them in advance. And for some cases, kids who are not on the spectrum, give them advance warning. Don't try to do everything all at once. Roll things out in stride. But generally speaking, when you set something in place for most kids, try to be consistent. Try to follow through on what you say. I have a saying, say what you mean and mean what you say. It's really important for parenting. So that's where this schedule comes into play. So let's keep going here. So what can you incorporate in your daily routine? It's a bunch of different things you can do, and not everything should be around just hardcore learning and education for 8 hours a day while you have your child between breakfast and dinner. Look to things for chores. You can start to weave in teachings into regular things like chores, into things like exercise. You can build educational opportunities into these other things so that your child doesn't necessarily even realize that you're teaching them something. Think back to the movie The Karate Kid for all you remnants of the 80s. You're teaching someone how to paint, and all of a sudden they've learned a whole other skill. So you can do the same thing for chores and for exercise, for nature walks, doing crafts. But you can do things, as I mentioned, like chores, exercise, academics, nature, crafts, music, learning life skills, socializing from afar. Of course, we don't want to be too close to our neighbors right now because we have to stay safe, but also games. I've seen a lot of cool things you can do. One thing I'll touch upon, just to give you an example, is kids who struggle with reading comprehension. This is something we would see a lot. The two hardest things, I think, or three hardest things to do in school if you're a kid are pay attention and to read. And then for a lot of other kids, math comes along with that. But those are the two most challenging things, are focus and reading, in my experience. So something that I've recommended to people in the past when I was a psychologist in the school system was to build in practice time into non-academic settings. So what I mean by that is if your child struggles to recall information that's just been shared, most commonly through reading. So if you read something and you ask your child, what did you just read about? What was that paragraph about? I don't know. Or what was that book about? Can you explain it to me? It was about a guy and he went through the town. I don't really remember. So some of the things you have to start to teach are the skills that go with comprehension. It's not just about decoding and reading words or just hearing words. It's about retaining what you just heard. What you can do is if you're watching, let's say, you're watching some educational programming, you're watching some kind of kids show on Netflix or on your TV. What you can start to do is the pause button nowadays is your friend. What you can do is you can watch with your child and you can break down and pause every once in a while and say, tell me what you just learned about. What did they just do when they were in that setting, or when those two kids were at their desks at school? What just happened? Tell me about it. And you can start simple and start to expand a little bit. What you're going to start to do is, and you can get creative and you can start to say things like, we don't want to be punitive, but you can start to say things like, if you get this right, we're going to watch another 5 or 10 minutes of this program that you like. And if you don't get it right, we're going to take a break for 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. But what kids start to do very quickly is they start to realize, what do I have to do to get more of this thing that I like? My caretaker asked me about the who, what, and why of this last one. So then they start to build these cognitive schemas, as what I call it, this cognitive blueprint in their head of, when I'm watching this show right now, I should be thinking about what these people's names are, what they did, and how many of them did something, or how many things that they built. So you start to mentally prime the pump in their brain about what they should be listening for, what they should be attuned to. Now, all the while, you're doing this while watching something that they like. So this is a good example of how you can interweave learning with a regular home life. This is just one example, again, for reading comprehension. And you should also teach them in advance what you want them to learn. Just kind of giving these examples in the moment can be challenging for kids, especially younger kids. So sometimes it's helpful to give them an example. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as we watch this show, and start small. I'm going to ask you, it's a bunch of kids who are building things for their school craft fair. I'm going to start to ask you what number of things that each child built as they go through the story. And I'm going to ask you what the kids' names were. So just be aware of that. Let's hit play. Great. A few minutes later, we'll pause. Tell me about those things we just talked about, and you can add to it. So that's a creative way to go about incorporating learning into your home life. You can do the same thing for math. You could do the same thing for writing, the same thing for history. And science is also a really fun and easy one to incorporate when you start to think about scientific principles in daily life. So let's take a look at schedules. Let's talk more about this. So an example, 8 a.m., let's get going, get dressed, breakfast, take your vitamins, brush your teeth. 8:30, let's do some chores, laundry, dishes, make your bed, let's clean up your room. 9 o'clock, let's stop for some exercise. Us folks here at Revibe are big into getting kids to move. The more that our device now collects data for you as a parent or a school or a caretaker, the more we're able to share back with you, hey, did you know that moving a lot during this time period or this subject or this class is really helpful? More steps or more fidgeting, things like that. So we want to get the kids up and moving. Also, taking breaks is important. We have a setting called homework mode on our device. You can also use a timer. You don't have to buy a Revibe. You can just set an egg timer or your phone timer nowadays. But build in breaks. Kids do better when they are allowed to take a little bit of a break. It's called the Pomodoro method. You can work for 15 minutes, take 5 minutes off. Work for 20 minutes, take 5 or 10 minutes off. But keep going. 10 o'clock, academic time. You can go to scholastic.com. A lot of folks are now offering free online courses for kids who are at home due to COVID-19. 11:30, we're going to socialize. We're going to call or write a letter to someone who is socially distanced or isolated. We have a lunch and play date outside together as a family. 1 o'clock, arts and crafts. We'll watch some lunch doodles. We'll make something fun with some Legos, bracelets. 1:30, academic time. Khan Academy is another one who's really good about having online content to keep you guys busy and learning. And we'll circle back on some of these later on. 2:30, we can do some music, practice an instrument. 3:30, exercise, play outside. 4:30, a little bit of free time. And then 5:30, we can help with dinner. So it's really good to structure potentially your whole day through bedtime. What I think a lot of you guys will find is you'll go, after this is all done and kids are back in school, and sometime you'll go, you know what? That schedule thing we put in place, awesome. We're going to actually keep that going because it's been really helpful for us. Having a fixed schedule can really help to turn down the level of arguments, the level of nagging that goes on, or the perceived level of nagging from your child to you. It just makes things a lot easier. And if you ever wonder why, sometimes you'll hear, that's my child, they're an angel for you in school. Awesome. We don't get that here. Terrific. Some of the secret the teachers have is that they have a very fixed scheduled day that they allow the kids to go through. So let's take a look at some resources for pre-K through K. You should try to limit the kids to about an hour or two initially as you roll into school at home. PBS Learning Media, I believe, is one of the groups who recently introduced some more free content or free signups because of COVID. And they're a terrific resource with lesson plans, videos, games. Scholastic, Learn at Home, they have a 20-day program you can check out. The Kennedy Center has an artist in residence, Mo Williams, who's offering some lunch doodles that live streams 1 p.m. So you should check that out. For kids in grades 7 to 12, No Red Ink is something that is for writing, 4th to 12th grade. Lumosity's got some fun brain games for kids, and Duolingo is a foreign language program that you can do. But just be cognizant of what the age recommendations are. For this group of kids, you want to limit it to 2 to 3 hours per day, maybe 3 to 4 hours for high school kids. But try to get into things. The important thing that I tell people from a psychologist background is don't backslide. It's really important to set a stake in the ground as a parent or an educator. But whether you have a child who's reluctant to go to school, we would call this a school phobic child who just has a lot of anxiety, they don't want to go in, or you have a child who you're trying to transition, for many of you now, to a home school or school at home situation, you're going to probably get some pushback. I don't want to do this at home. I have all my toys here. But what you can do that's important is once you reach a certain level, do not backslide. Do not let yourself go from 1 hour of academics. We're going to just do 30 minutes today and we'll go back to an hour tomorrow. You have to have consistency. It goes along with the mindset of the routine that you've put in place. Follow the routine. I will always tell you to err on the side of caution, in my opinion. Start with less and work your way up gradually. It's always better to start more and continue to grow and do more and more education or more and more things that are traditionally hard for kids than to start with too much, back it down, go up a little bit, back it down again, because it just sends the wrong message. You've got to send a clear message. We're going to keep growing and moving forward together. We're not going to let each other backslide. Here's a couple more resources. As I mentioned earlier, the Khan Academy offers personalized self-paced learning for all grade levels, PBS learning media, lesson plans, video games for kids. There's something called Brain Pop. A lot of you have heard of this, and I've seen a lot of fun videos back when I used to work in the school system from Brain Pop. They've got interactive lessons, quizzes, games for kids, especially right now who are facing schools who are closed from COVID-19. Our friends, we have a strategic partner of ours called Multi Health Systems. They're, in my opinion, they're the world leader in ADHD assessment, autism assessment, and a lot of other great assessments that they make for schools. They have a digital resource kit, toolkit for things of this nature. So they've got a great psychoeducation packet. They've got treatment resources. They've got guidance for families for transitions. And they've got some other things that you can check out. Some things that really got my interest peaked that they're offering in terms of this toolkit are some resources around anxiety and separation, some things for meditation and deep breathing, two things I'm big fans of. Talking about COVID-19 with your children. This is a weird, scary time. It's weird and scary for us, the grown-ups. I'm sure it's weird and scary for your kids. So how do you talk to them about that? And finally, they have some things about finding a new normal, which many of us are going to have to do in the coming weeks and months. So check out MHS's toolkit. It's a great resource for you guys. We have some things too that we're happy to share with you guys. You have a free resource, and I'll show you guys in a moment. I'll go back on camera full screen to walk you through our planner. But we've partnered with some friends of ours at a pediatrician's office who specializes in focus, called Fast Brain. So we've co-developed this planner for kids who struggle with focus and attention. And it's really fun and it's free. It's on the website. You can go to our website and download it. But it gives your kids a very structured toolkit that they can keep. You can print that out at your house, but they can keep it for themselves. And it helps them to get organized and empower themselves. We'll talk a little bit more about empowering shortly, but it's important to empower your kids so that you are able to walk away, right? Because you're still a grown-up. Many of you have other responsibilities at home besides just playing teacher right now, which is a hard job. My favorite social media thing that I've seen, my favorite post I've seen, one mom posted 1 hour and 11 minutes into homeschooling, teachers need to make $1 million a year. So as many of you have realized, probably why we have such a huge turnout, it's a really hard job, especially when you're at home and you've got all these distractions that are around you. But empowering your kids to work for a little bit while you're able to go do some other things, that's important as well. So we get a lot of questions. How do you use your Revibe at home? You can put a new schedule into your Revibe app. And you can actually use the Revibe app if you just want to get some things done on paper for free if you download the app. But if you have a Revibe device, like our Revibe Connect here, it'll pop up on the screen and show various reminders, such as, it's 9 o'clock, it's time to start our arts and crafts session. It's 9:30, it's time to do math. It's 9:45, we're going to do a break. It's 10 o'clock, we're going to do reading. So it pops up on their wrist so that you don't have to necessarily call them out or remind them. It buzzes on their wrist and flashes this message that you can program. So that's really helpful. What you can also do, if you have children who have other challenges that are maybe tied to anxiety or emotional types of things, sometimes it's helpful to tie in some reminders to their wrist, where you can put things like begin a deep breathing exercise. If you know that your child is set off by math is their trigger. They get anxious, they get upset, they throw their hands up. Before you have them do math, you can do things like, hey, it's in this case, it's 1 o'clock or it's 1:10 p.m. Start your deep breathing exercise before math starts. There's also something that we've got that is called homework mode. And homework mode is really nice because you can let the children start to work, and it will remind them on their wrist every 15 minutes or so when to stop and take a break. It'll flash break time. And then after their break is over, it'll buzz and flash again to remind them to get back to work. So there's certain technology pieces that you can do to provide yourself a little bit of a break, and it also allows the children to be more independent. The more independence that you can foster for your kids, the better off that you're going to be. So in terms of Revibe, what it is, we get a lot of questions as far as what is this? Is it a wearable device? How does it work? The quick story is that we promote independence through vibrations that are tailored to each child. So Revibe learns when the best time to send vibrations for each child are. It's particularly helpful at that when you put in a schedule, so it can really learn your child's needs on a scheduled basis. It allows you guys to view data, so you can look at things like, where did we start? What was the average attention span in minutes? How on task or off task was the child? How fidgety were they? And then what kinds of things historically have we seen that have been helpful? So we'll share data with you for your particular child, such as, did you know that over the past month, when your child's been allowed to take a 20-minute walk before lunchtime, their attention span has been 5 minutes longer on average than when they didn't have that break? Or when you allowed your child to walk 3,000 steps or more before 11 o'clock each morning, their on-task focus rate was 36% higher in the last month. So things like that, where you can start to build, some foundational knowledge for yourself, and you can make some data-based decisions on how to help your child. But we're all about building confidence. So if we can be of any help, please let us know. We're here for you guys. We want to get you through this time. It's challenging for everybody. Give us a call. Our team, our staff has got a lot of good, helpful suggestions. Certainly, if there's anything that you're impacted by that we can help, just let us know in terms of school. If you're a member and we can help you out, or you're not a member and we can help you out, please let us know. Let's go off camera, or on camera, I should say, for just a minute. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and show you the planner that I'm holding here. And you guys can check out what this looks like. So this is the planner. This is our little printed version that we have. But if you open the planner up, we've got a little introduction to it. It goes on the high level in 2-week chunks, and then we break it down onto a daily routine for each child. So we have things like their schedule. You can put a child's schedule in here, similar to what you would do in the app. You can also put whatever homework they have going on, a quick daily checklist of just some best practice for most kids who struggle with focus and attention. You can make a little custom to-do list each day. And then you can have the kids give themselves a personal score. Kids really tend to do well when you can give them some positive feedback and have them honestly rate themselves in terms of how they did that day. And then some notes and some daily journaling. We're really strong into really big into positive behavioral reinforcement. So one thing that I did well today, sometimes kids need help with that, and sometimes they don't. Catch your kids being good. I'm a big fan of encouraging people to try to catch their children doing things really well. It's all too easy to find kids doing things that are wrong or inappropriate or that you want to change, but it's harder to find things that they're doing that you can compliment them on. And that's going to be a big thing for a lot of you guys who are at home. If you're a parent at home, you're going to probably start to feel a little bit of friction that's building between you and your child, and that's normal. The first thing that they teach us when you start graduate school for the field of school psychology is not everybody is going to get along well all the time, and that's okay. It's important, though, to acknowledge when things are not going well, and to put some things in place, like finding positives that your child's doing to start to get you on the right foot. So as you encounter friction with your child, you guys are going to butt heads. Have honest conversations with your child. Talk about, hey, we're all stressed out. We haven't left the house in 2 weeks. Let's take a break together. Let's talk about our feelings. How do you feel? Give them some story starters. You can pause your child and say, whoa, let's start like this. I feel frustrated because, and let them fill it in. Also, something I think could be a saving grace for a lot of people is to keep in mind when you are having some emotional friction, if you will, things are grating, people are grating on each other. The best time to talk about it is often not right then and there. You don't want to wait hours and hours or days later, but give children particularly a chance to cool down. That's what we would call in psychology a teachable moment. If you're arguing back and forth and you want to know something or get them to do the next question or the next subject, going right from one thing to the next is not the healthiest thing, and it's not going to be fruitful for anyone. Take a break. Let everybody go back to their respective corners. When everybody's cooled down after a few minutes, regroup, talk about what happened, and then try to move forward from it. But find that teachable moment period where the kids are open to hearing you, because a lot of times when someone's in an amped up emotional state, they're not going to hear anything. And that's frustrating. And then you get more frustrated, they get more frustrated. And then that's where you get a lot of the challenges that come from trying to educate kids at home. But anyway, the planner is really helpful. I do recommend checking it out, printing it out. Again, it's free on our website. And I think it's a really good resource. So we have a couple minutes left just before we have to sign off. So I'd love to see if you have any questions that I might be able to answer for you. All right, I'm just going to skim through here and see if there's any quick questions. Someone asked if you can see this whole thing. Yes, this is being recorded and shared, which we will have a link for at the end. And I believe it's also on Facebook Live. So you can also go into our Facebook and check that out as well. Someone asked if there are any discounted rates right now. I believe that there are. I believe we have some specials going right now. So be sure to check that out. Have somebody from the marketing team chime in on that, but I do believe we have some deals going on for you guys right now.
Yeah, I can answer that, Rich.
Somebody had asked about the stickers. Yes, we do from time to time ship out and some of these fancy printed ones that we have that are bound, and we do print stickers, but you guys can use any stickers in terms of putting things down to celebrate the child. Doesn't have to be our special stickers. Let me see what else we've got in terms of questions. Thanks so much for all the helpful information. You're very welcome. That's awesome. Great. Well, what is the best thing? Okay, a few questions rolling in. What's my 13 or 6-year-old have to homeschool themselves? I'm considered an employee and I can't be home with them. So if your kids are, they're old enough to, of course, to watch themselves and to try to educate themselves while they're at home. Someone had shared that, there's some kind of a first responder or somebody who has to go into work. They're mandated to go into work. That's part of life, right? Life happens, and we have to figure out creative ways to help these kids continue to learn. My suggestion would be this. I will share with you, kids are surprisingly accurate and honest when left to their own devices. Our brains go right to when the cat's away, the mice will play. But when kids see something that's helpful for them, they are pretty quick to jump on and buy into it. So my suggestion, high level, would be get buy-in from your child. Figure out a schedule together that you think makes sense. If you put something down, do math from here, reading to here, English, language, arts, science, just do it because that's what I told you to do. you're not going to get great buy-in. And when you leave, the TV is going to go on, tablets are going to come out, and you're not going to get great response from it. But if you allow your child themselves to dictate to you, you tell me, what do you think is important? And you can use something we call in psychology, it's called forced choice. What that means is, I'm going to give this person, in this case, the child, the opportunity to make their own decision. The power is in their court. Kids like that. Everyone likes to have control, right? But you're giving them a couple of set things. So I'm going to tell you, within these bounds, A, B, C, or D, which one do you want to do first? Which 5 things out of these 15 things do you want to do each day? And that way, you're setting the bounds that they have to fall within, but they're able to pick things that they like, or that in an order that they think would be most interesting. So that, to me, is how I would approach it. I would give your kids a lot of say in the matter, with a lot of coaching from you as a parent, but really let them kind of take ownership and help them understand why it's important. It's really amazing when you flip the script sometimes around from "you must do this" to more of a question. Do you guys think this is important? And sometimes it helps to build a case up, because you don't want to give your example and have them go, "No, we don't think this is very important. We think Xbox is more important." But if you can build up a case and a good example as far as, "Hey, here's what's going to happen. Here's why things might be important. What do you think about that? Do you think it's important?" And then you get some buy-in from the children. So that was a great question. Someone else, I'm just going to read here. Someone's got a 13-year-old who has anxiety about going to school and is doing online, yet doesn't want to do either. Any suggestions? The best thing I can share with you is kind of the mindset of something called rational emotive therapy, RET. For kids who have fears that are sometimes inappropriate or unjustified, this is very helpful. But this is even helpful for fears that are justified. The kids, it's understandable why somebody would be nervous to go back to school among a pandemic. But what I've found that is the best way for most of the kids I've worked with to overcome that is to just fight fear with facts. Challenge them. Well, if this happened, then this would have had to have happened. Now, what are the chances of that? I don't know. Let's look it up together. So it's really good to just directly tackle any concerns that kids have and fight their fear with facts. Use science. Challenge people. If somebody says something like, "I'm afraid, I'm afraid to go in the garden because what if a snake comes out?" Then you would be wise to say, "Well, how many snakes have I seen? I'm in the garden every day. Have I ever seen a snake? No, there could be one there for sure, but let's look at this. I've been to the garden 1,000 times in the last 5 years. I've never seen a snake. So let's just say, what are the odds of us seeing a snake? Are they good or bad? Well, they're bad. Okay, now I feel less anxious about that." So I would do the same thing for this. That's the best way to tackle, in my opinion, anxiety. Have you given any thought to different? So yes, we are always doing new updates. Somebody asked about Revibe. We're always doing new updates to Revibe, both the software. We just rolled out a brand new app, actually, which we're really excited about, with some fun animations and graphs and really user-friendly things. So we have another update coming in a couple weeks and another one after that. So we're constantly updating the app, and we are going to keep updating the hardware as well. So that's a great question. Let's see, something we are researching. Okay, this is before. Gotcha. All right. Well, it seems like there's a bunch of hardware questions about how the device works, how billing works, and all those kinds of things. So I'll summarize everything quickly as we wrap up here. Yes, we're always making new adjustments to hardware and software and updating things. So keep an eye peeled for that. In terms of how the actual device itself works and a subscription, we have got an online platform that comes with all the data that I talked about before, that comes with a replacement warranty. So if you run it over with the minivan, which actually happens more than you think, you just mail us back the pieces. We send you a brand new Revibe for free. If you lose your Revibe completely and it's in playground heaven somewhere, if you're a member of our Plus plan, then we send you a new one. I think it's about $40, somewhere around that ballpark, instead of buying a whole new one. and that's a couple of bucks a month. I think it's $4 or $5 a month if you're an annual subscriber, or it's $5 or $6 a month if you are a month-to-month member. You don't have to have this plan we're talking about, but for it to become adaptive and for it to constantly change and learn the child's needs and share all the data that we share. So we save data up in a secure cloud, which we then process all the data, and then we pump it back down through your handset so you can look at it, and we put it back into the Revibe so it can keep learning and adjusting itself. So because of that, we get it. We incur fees for all the cloud storage. It's a lot of information that we store for each user. So we have to charge to store that data. And then we also offer that replacement plan as part of that package that I mentioned for a few bucks a month. But if you do not want to have an online plan, you can still use Revibe as a classic device, which means it's kind of a one size fits most. There's no intelligence software. There's no data. It doesn't adjust itself, but it does provide vibrations that are still helpful for kids. And you can still use it as a watch. And a pedometer, so it'll still count steps and things like that. But yeah, if you ever have any questions, we have an awesome customer service team. Our staff, I truly can say, has huge hearts, and we're here to help everybody. So any questions you have about Revibe, any questions you have about what we talked about today, the staff creates, they help me create a lot of the content that we do here. So the staff's actually really knowledgeable about tips and tricks and things like that that you guys can use. So we're here for you if you have Revibe questions. We're here for you if you have general focus and attention questions. Let us know how we can be of any help. We love our users, and we hope that you guys love us as well. We're here to support you guys. Keep your chin up. Things will get better for sure. But just know the most important thing I tell parents, I like to sign off every webinar that we do by reminding parents, it's tough to be a parent. You have a lot of things going on before any of the COVID stuff came out. So just to, provide for your kids, take care of the house, do laundry, provide, food for your kids, go to work and provide a living to be able to support your kids. And then you're trying to do research on top of that. How do I help my child who can't focus? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a teacher. You're trying to do research and learn. And then your children, in some cases, are on board with you, and they're like, hey, I get it. Let's work together. In a lot of cases, though, that's not how it goes. A lot of kids who struggle with focus and attention have a hard time understanding, that you're here to help them, and the relationships can sometimes be challenging. You can get a lot of oppositional and defiant types of behaviors, which is frustrating as a parent. And you can feel like you're alone, and you can wonder, am I doing everything I can do? Am I being a good parent? Another year has gone by with my child still struggling. What's going to happen in the future? I can tell you, I can promise you this, the fact that you're here, you're getting educated on different strategies and interventions you can do for your child, you're way ahead of most people out there. It's a tough gig. Lean on your people around you, lean on your school system, lean on your school psychologist, your counselor, the teacher. Everybody's here to help you, but do know that you've got a tough job. It's probably the toughest that's out there, is trying to help a child with unique needs. But if we can be of any help, we have a lot of cool articles and things like that that we share on our blogs for free, that we have some things we've put up on our website, some materials. We try to save you guys time because we know it's hard to go out there and Google the whole internet to learn and distill things down to what you have to know. So another great resource is Attitude, ADDITUDE. Attitude is a great email that they put out as well. It gives a lot of good parenting tips. So keep your chins up. You're in this to win this, and with the right tools and the right attitude, be positive, and you can lead your child to success. And remember that as long as they are doing their best, you are doing your best, that's a huge win for everybody. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.